It's, uh, it's like what we're seeing in humans now as far as restoring the microbiome in our stomach, what impact it has on our health. We see that when this microbiome is disturbed, either through antibiotic regimes or through diet related, that it does not seem to come back unless you re-inoculate it. They see this on Crohn's disease, they see this on IBS, that people with these diseases can suffer for decades. And they don't get better because they use antibiotic regimes as well, resection of intestines. But they find when they come in with a fecal matter transplant from a healthy donor, that these people can be healed within 24 hours. And autism even is one of the diseases that they see as you restore the microbiota in the person that has autism, that they start to move out of these autistic tendencies. And Chun saw a paper the other day, fibromyalgia, and just almost every autoimmune disease we have is related to a dysbiosis of our stomach microbiota. Yes, ma'am?
What kind of transplant was that?
A fecal matter transplant, where they call it the poo pill.
Okay.
Okay, you're taking a microbial community from a healthy donor and restoring it up into the upper intestinal tract, and that repopulates your stomach microbiome, and it restores function and health. It's amazing what's happening now, and we ran into a nurse on an air flight, on one of the flights we had. I said, well, what is happening in medicine today? She said, the biologicals, without a doubt, are making such an impact on people's health. And it's not just treating symptoms, it's a cure that they're offering. Not just keeping symptoms down, but a cure. So we're seeing that in agriculture, we have destroyed the microbiomes in these soils from all of the plowing that we've done, the addition of the chemical fertilizers, the agrochemicals, the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. All of these have destroyed that community. And they're destroying with that the ability of these soils to grow plants. So we find if we do restore these soils with that microbiome, and this is one way to do it. They can do it strictly with grazing animals because that's what we're mimicking, is the grazing animals that developed on the Great Plains and their impact on that soil as they would be herded across by predators. They would deposit their dung. The dung would be rolled into little balls by the dung beetles, placed in the ground, compost in place. It was an inoculation that these bison had as they went across the prairies, increasing productivity, plant growth, and also increasing soil carbon 6 feet deep in some places. So when we came in to farm that, it was great. But then as we farmed the carbon out and as we destroyed the microbial community, we lost that productivity. We can regain that productivity by bringing the microbes back. And this is kind of what this is. If you don't have cattle or bison, I know everybody has a bison at home, right? If you don't have these animals to help you get that biology back, this system can make the compost for you and have that microbiota that you can put back into the soil. Now, the application rates on this are kind of interesting. In Australia, they do it at about 1 kilogram per hectare or 1 pound per acre rate. That's all it takes to get the biology back. Now, they apply it every time they plant, so they're having to reapply. But the unique thing about this composting process, it's aerobic, so there's no anaerobic part to it, so it never stinks. It's done at 70% moisture content, so you have enough moisture that the microbes and the fungi can traverse across all the organic matter. And it's an undisturbed system, so that allows the fungal community to dominate. And what we've lost in these systems is the fungal community. So if we can come in with a fungal dominant compost, which this system does, windrow doesn't. They end up with a very bacterial dominant, so you're not getting the fungal community restored in the system. And fungal community is all about communication and logistics. There's communication between microbes and plants, and then the logistics of transport of all the elements that that plant needs in trade for the plant exudates that help feed these organisms below ground. So this is an inoculum to get it going, but you need to understand this is a living system. You have to feed it. It's just like a child. If you don't feed it, they don't grow. So it's understanding that you are working with a living system, and the better you can restore the microbiology in that system, the more productive your system is going to be. So the more profitable you're going to be. Haggerty's in Australia, they go cold turkey. They have taken over their neighbor's land. They do about 10,000 hectares in southern Australia on the western side in the desert. And they just go in and they make an extract out of a compost similar to this and inject it in with the seed at planting. They get about 3 tons of barley per hectare. Again, this is dry land. In a region commercially that gets 1.5 to 1.6. And people are going broke there in a conventional approach where they are buying their neighbor's land and increasing their land holdings and what they can grow. Now, one observation that they had, if you didn't see it in the presentation, was where they had planted the barley and injected this extract in, they had harvested the barley, they got a late season rain, and there was a C4 grass that came up in nice, neat rows, exactly where they had inoculated. And they hadn't seen it in 3 decades in that area. And most of the people that work for the government said that plant was not indigenous to the area. But they had had it when they had the sheep grazing. That was a predominant grass in the prairie. But to see it come up in rows exactly where the biology was put in is to us is a pretty telling
indicator for
yeah.
bringing the life into the soil and to bring the life back into the soil and bring the balance into the soil. Bring your underground farm hands or livestock to help you for better production. So again, that I've told other group as well that this is not magic, this is not miracle, but this is a biologically enhanced agriculture management system that you make the microbial diverse compost able to inoculate your land, but then you have to follow up with appropriate, proper agriculture management to feed this microbes, the living organism, enabled for them to feed back to you. So, always having the living roots able to feed them. That if you don't feed your farm hands or livestock, they don't do very well. And this is the same concept. It's a symbiotic relationship. So anyway, so does anybody have any questions about the compost bioreactor?
Any organic matter, it's better if it's not wet. It's not green and wet, because if it's green and wet, it will pack. But we do, like horse manure, stall clean out.
Well, we have cattle, so, you would put that in there
We've done cattle manure, yes.
and then just keep putting other types of,
No, you actually collect enough material and to fill this all at once.
It takes about 3 truckloads.
okay,
Yes. And then you want to shred up the material so that they have a kind of a homogenized size. So that way, the end product, you don't have a big chunks of things that they are not completely compost.
So horse apples will get through the process. Cow patties will get through the process because they're so tight. But once you break them open, the more surface area you have on the material you put in, the better it composts.
Yeah.
And
so you have to put it through a shredder.
it's better if you have a tub grinder,
Or chipper shredder.
chipper shredder, anything like that to break it open.
And we do have a video and also PDF that will make available to Minokan Farm, and Jay or Nolan probably will be able to put them online for everybody to access. David does have a YouTube channel that he has all the videos in there as well. So this is make open source. So everybody that interested in doing this, and I hope everybody go home and make one, and share the knowledge and failure and success with everybody so we all can learn from each other. But this, pretty much David, the first bioreactor we made more than a decade ago, that he used 1/3 manure, 1/3 wood chips, really tiny,
3/8 minus in size.
and 1/3 of yard trash. And then now mostly we use leaves because those are most available material to us. And the analysis came back that, I mean, the microbial profile, they're eerily similar. I mean, if you look at all the different species, they're just very similar in their population and the percentage as well. So we believe that it's a process, but you do have to collect enough material to put it in one day, or no more than 2 days, because as soon as you put it together, the process begins. You know, the biological action starting to happen. So if you put a little bit in at a time, you're not going to have the end product mature at the same time.
Okay, so let's say you get that filled up, then what do you do with it?
You leave it for a year and allow it to mature. And I think some of them already heard me say this before.
It's
It's every system, every living system has maturity period. Like human embryo takes takes 9 months to mature. So I tell the guys that December 31st come along, and do you tell your wife that, honey, pack up the bag, we're going to the hospital, induce the labor when she's only 6 months along. It's not mature yet. You know, it has to get to the point that all the diversity is there, the populations are there, enable for them to do the beneficial effect for your land when you inoculate your land with it. You know, it has to reach the quorum and that critical point to be beneficial.
as you allow it to mature, we see a 4 times increase in the diversity of this system. So it's diversity of microbes that you're putting out there for Mother Nature to choose from. You know, it's having the roster of players, like on a baseball team, to pick from to get each talent that you need at the time you need it. And
Yeah.
that's what this system is allowing.
And do keep it in mind is that in the video it will show you the process, and don't skip the steps because they're very critical. We have people, they skip certain steps. They thought, well, you know, this will be easier, you know, just skip certain steps, put them all in and get it done, and then ended up they have failure at the end. You don't want to put that much effort into putting it together to have a failure. But the thing about it is it takes a lot of effort to put it together at the beginning, but for the next 12 months, you don't have to do anything besides to check on it once in a while.
Just keep it, we irrigate it 1 minute a day, as I was saying. That way,
Yeah.
it keeps it at about 70% moisture content. But that's in the desert. You may get by with less here.
It depends on your environment, so you do have to put some observation there and adjust accordingly for your own environment. So when you put this together, keep it in mind it's aerobic. So from beginning to the end, it's aerobic.
No smells, no flies. This is a composting process that, if it's done correctly, you have neither of those.
And it's no turn. So for the next 12 months, you don't turn it. So it's very awesome that you don't have to go there and try to turn anything. And 70% moisture content. That's what allows the fungi to grow and flourish in this, is that 70% moisture content and no turn. Imagining if you are fungi and you got all that fungal hyphae, and there you somebody come around and turn it and breaking everything apart. Like somebody come to your house and then toss you and everything you ever own out of the house every day. You won't establish very well. So just keep that in mind, that no turn, aerobic, and moisture content.
And then worms.
And then
Worms are key.
after the thermophilic phase, which you heat up, the temperature will heat up and it'll go down. And once it reach 80-degree Fahrenheit,
You can just stick your hand in and it starts to be comfortable.
yeah, and you can throw in about 100 worms in there, and you will totally populate the pile.
It'll be full of baby worms when you start to harvest it.
So, I'm gonna walk over here. So as you can see here, it sits on the pallet, and it has about six pipes here, and those 6 pipes only stay in here after you fill it about 1 day, 2 days maximum, and the fungal hyphae will totally grow through the pile and stabilize. At that point, you pull this out, and the entire surface area of the air shaft will be the beginning point for the ambient air starting to infiltrate through the pile. And that's why it's able to stay aerobic without any kind of mechanical means. So that's why it can sit for 12 months without, without turning. And then you have that put over this pallet here. It's kind of cylindrical shape, and you fill it. Make sure it's got enough moisture, and whatever you do, don't let it dry out, because if you let it dry out, you have to do a redo. So keep that in mind.
The microbes will coat all the material with a hydrophobic substance, and you can't get water into it. They're protecting themselves.